Hi, I'm Evelyn.
I'm Alexis.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Anna.
We are the Marmalade Mermaids. This week, our flag means compassion. Season 2, Episode 6, Calypso's Birthday. All right, Anna, pick a number between 1 and 223.
1 and 223. Let's go with 1 and 2. Let's do 101.
Dalmatian. Just kidding.
Dalmatian. Oh.
101 Dalmatian. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, 101. There you go. 101 Dalmatian.
Oh, okay. Line 101. Steed says, "Oh God, we're under attack."
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is a very important moment. It's a rapid change in our scene. Evelyn, do you remember that moment? What's literally
Yes.
happening?
I can't remember exactly what was right before. Oh, I think what was it? Like Ed and Steed were about to like dance or something like that. Have like a nice little romantic moment. And then something shoots through the sails and realization of that's when Steed makes this line. And one thing that I liked is that Ed covers Steed to protect him, and Ned shows up playing the violin kind of to the tune of Levy and Rose, and introduces himself.
Well done. I'm glad you brought in those visual details because looking at the script, I forgot all those little visuals of what happened there. All right, so our line, "Oh God, we're under attack." Where do we see that allegorically? Where else does this show up? For me, so many times when we're reading these lines, I need to think of a bigger context than the literal words and think of, because this is a moment where we're having this lovely dance scene. There's this lovely music. We're having a nice party. And then suddenly it's like, oh, this is actually very, very bad. We're all in danger.
Okay. So, A Game of Thrones.
Go for it.
I'm just gonna say Game of Thrones. I'm just kidding. The Red Wedding. That's the that was such a big. They're they do they did a well done job of like showcasing little hints that something really bad is about to happen. But I'd say that you could really see that with the Red Wedding. There was you have the orchestra playing the song that basically show like this is something bad's about to happen. There's little bits and scenes where you see um the people that were going to attack the Starks. They're wearing chainmail uh under their gear. And I'd say one of the specific scene is when I can't remember her name, but the head lady of the Starks, the wife of Ned Stark, is when she notices the Bolton the leader of the Bolton's family, when she notices he's wearing chainmail under his gear when this is supposed to just be a wedding. Of sorts, the like sudden realization, and that's kind of when everything went downhill. Like, oh, we are under attack. We're about to die.
Yeah.
That's a really good example. I like that a lot, Evelyn. Because this line is about surprise. It's not just under attack. It's not like, hey, we're going to go fight this battle. It's like, oh no, we're under attack. And when is that? Is that moment when the attack starts? Or like, I love this example of Red Wedding because it's the moment before the attack. Like she understands that something's going to happen and that something has been put in place to happen for a while now that they were unaware of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't want to get like too like heavy with it. But for whatever reason, what it made me think of was the movie United 93. United 93.
Mm.
But they're looking at the perspective of the people who are working in air traffic control, and also to looking at like September 11th, one of the planes, but the moment that makes me think of is when you're thinking about the people working in air traffic control, where all they can see is like what's on the radar, and they're getting little information, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and then there's this moment where all of a sudden they're like, oh, these aren't accidents, like we're on, like something is happening. And having that moment, that again is just like really sad, but again, that's just one of the things I remember when I saw that movie, of that, like, oh, something is happening that is a lot bigger, and forces are working against us, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like there are big forces working against us, and I didn't realize it until this moment. So that's kind of a very serious way to think about it. But that then leads me to thinking about Sully, the movie Sully. I like books. I like books. I like movies about airplanes, apparently, where it's thinking about again, like their perspective of, oh, this plane is, something's happening to the plane. And like they're automatically, like, again, trying to figure it out, like, are we under attack? And so I think it's that like we are, but also it's like this question sometimes of what's happening. Obviously a cannonball is a cannonball and Steve understands what's happening, but there's still a question like, where's it coming from and who is it and why are they doing this? So I think there's actually a lot in there in a line like that. So those are my first thoughts.
No, those are really great examples
Mhm.
of like in history we see that,
Mhm.
in literature we see that. I was trying to think of it at a time in nature where things are really peaceful, and then like suddenly, I guess just any violent change comes as a surprise to someone, right?
Like our monsoon season sometimes here in Las Vegas. It's just a sudden, just pouring craziness of rain.
That's a good point. Like a
It was,
thunderstorm or a big like heavy rainstorm.
yeah. I think what was it last? Yeah, it was last year because I remember coming home, like I remember coming home from class. At first it was just like, oh, we're just having um it's just I remember seeing like going to class, it was going to rain. And then when I left class, it was pouring with crazy winds and all of that stuff. And it's just that was scary. I remember my car kind of messed up because of that. And I stopped. I was a little bit stuck.
Well, and I was thinking of the element of surprise, and for the ones that are doing the attacking, there's no surprise. There's a plan,
Yeah.
right? There's like, we showed up in our chainmail. Like, we are the ones that are doing, but for the victim, there is just this element of surprise and like, what's going on, and all those questions that they have.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. A part of like when you're thinking about like a storm, sometimes they do, like they come out of nowhere, but most of the time they're not coming out of nowhere. Like there's a lot of scientific data that you can get, information, like something's coming. And I think the surprise part is the person not being aware of it,
Yeah.
or not being aware of
Yes.
the severity of it. And then I think again, like it's a very human thing to be like, that came out of nowhere. It's like, no, like if you can like again like pay a little bit of attention to the weather, then you'll be like, oh, something, or like listening or something like that. And then that kind of, it's again like these random thoughts, I don't know why they're coming up, but that makes me think of COVID, where I remember I have a coworker who was in school at the time. She was in college, and one of her like classmates, his grandpa lived in Wuhan, and went to go have like a break or something. And this was August in 19, and he, or something like that, September or something like that. And he was like, guys, like weird things are happening. And they were like, I don't know what you're talking about, And so again, like just thinking about, there are bigger forces that are moving all the time, but are you sensitive enough to be aware of them? Because I do think, yeah, the surprise part is because your guard is down.
Yes.
I like your point because, yeah, like the
Mhm.
Trojan horse, like the people in the horse, it's not a surprise what's happening, but the people who are like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Yeah, there's something different there. And I do like, I think it was you, Alexis, who said just casually that if Buttons had been on board, or maybe it was Katie, so if Buttons had been on board, there wouldn't have been an attack. It would have been a surprise attack. because
Yeah.
Buttons would never have just like walked away like, I guess I'll have a party. Like he would have always been working and keeping an eye out and very vigilant, which yeah, it's interesting that he's not there and then this moment happens.
Yeah, Katie thought of that. That was a good thought. Yeah, because yeah, the stalking tiger, it's not a surprise, but to the rabbit or whatever it is, they were not paying attention, or they didn't see the signs, or their guard was down. We're under attack. All right. Are we ready to move on to where we see it in our life? I think we have some really good examples, but if you have other ones in your real life. I have one that I'm going to share that is just maybe close, not right on the note. But I was working with a team of teachers, and we had a new assistant principal that was shaking things up a little bit in ways that we felt kind of attacked a little bit, and not great. And we had this not a guest teacher, like a student teacher. And the student teacher was sitting in on a staff, like a grade level meeting. And we were talking and sharing the kinds of things that it was kind of griping too. But then this teacher goes out to go have like a little bathroom break and comes back with like the assistant principal. And it was this real moment of like, we thought we were relaxed and now we feel like under attack. Like we were just snitched on big time. And so that was just like a not life-threatening situation, but real like a quick change from here we are as a team, just chatting, maybe having a good time, maybe complaining, whatever. And that sudden shift of like, we're under attack.
Oh man.
Wow, that's a story.
We called her the snitch from then on.
For sure. For
Yep.
sure. That's a good story. That makes me think of my first year I taught first grade, and the principal was just he'd been in the army. He was just a principal, and he was like that with everyone. He just had a big voice, and he was, kind of just really like, stalk through the halls. And again, he wasn't scary. It was always like, I'm on everyone's side, but he was more like a drill sergeant. And so everyone was always like, oh, Mr. Chung, like Mr. Chung somewhere, everyone's just a little bit like, you stand a little bit straighter, you kind of hold your breath in of like, I just want to make sure I'm like doing everything I'm supposed to around him. And so it was my time in the garden, and the garden's near the office, and the kids had to line up, and they're lining up by the door that goes in and out of the office, not his office directly, but just like the main office. And so I had like all my kids line up, and I'm standing with my back to the door facing the garden, and these kids line up. And, I'm looking out to make sure I'm scanning the garden to make sure I have all my kids. And all of a sudden, like from both sides, all my kids just scatter from behind me. They're like, Rah! Like silently, like gazelles. They're just like, whoo! And I'm like, what happened? And I turn around, and Mr. Chung had come out of the door. And so like what happened is they were lined up, and they're supposed to stay in line, and they're really good about it. But like the minute they saw them, just like wordlessly, they were like, run, just get, we're under attack. They weren't doing anything wrong, but that is everyone's reaction to Mr. Chung. All of a sudden he walks in the room, you're like, am I doing everything I'm supposed to? So I love that story, because I think like you have those people for good and bad who you can kind of have that with. But man, that snitch, no, that's not cool.
I know, it makes me, and now my guard's up, right? Now I'm not going to let that happen again.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's funny.
You lose a little naivete in situations like that. You lose a little trust in people.
I think one thing I'm gonna say is like maybe like a menstrual cycle. I don't know, for me personally, thinking about it, when I just see those few like bits of blood, my brain goes like, oh no.
You're under attack.
My-
I was having such a good time.
exactly. And then as soon as I see that, my emotions just is heightened. It's heightened. My body is in pain. I'm like, everything Every part of me is under attack for this point of the month. Great.
That's so great. And it reminds me of the nature thing. Like, if I was paying attention to the sign,
Yeah.
I might have known it was coming, but it took me by surprise.
It still takes you by surprise sometimes.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. It's like I'm surprised every time, but why am I surprised? But also it's that like, like all of a sudden like the floor drops out from underneath you. Like, oh no, like not this. And
I
oh,
love that for this line.
that's great. We're under attack. And I'm gonna think that we're under attack.
That's just like, there's this show on Netflix that's like I think it's like this, it's an anime where it's the parts of your body is, they like made it visualize like little characters and everything. Like you have your white blood cells, little characters, red blood cells. So I kind of just think about that sometimes. So it's just like period starting. Like, and everybody's just running around freaking out. Nothing's working as it should.
I think that's great. I think white blood cells is a great like the way to think about it as well. It's like something happens, like we're under attack. It's like, okay, but maybe, but also maybe you're just overreacting a little bit.
Oh yeah, like
Oh, no.
allergies or like when
Allergies.
your white blood cells immediately thinks we're under attack, but it's just
Just
no,
pollen.
it's just pollen.
That's funny. I love that.
Is that a peanut? No, that is a deadly weapon on your body.
All right, our last stage is to think about what we're called to.
Hmm.
I love this discussion, and I feel like we've gone a long way.
Um, I love it. I love Evelyn's examples because then what it makes me think about is it brings me back to compassion. Because I think there are people in my life that I love or that I know, or I'd like, okay, like you're in my life and it's fine. And I want to treat you with compassion, but for them, it's like everything's like, we're under attack. It's like, but maybe not. Maybe I just have a different opinion than you, or maybe I'm just asking you to do something a little inconvenient, or maybe like you're in a situation that you didn't properly plan for. And now you're gonna have to like deal with this thing that's gonna be a little bit inconvenient and not like make it everyone else's problem. And so speaking from an experience today, but I think like it's that just like, oh, like some people just move through the world like we're under attack. Like I'm always under attack about everything. And maybe just having compassion, because that's really scary, that moment when you're like, oh no, and that can be for maybe forces bigger than you. It can be maybe things that you haven't planned for. And it can also be just things like this, like, again, like I love the menstrual cycle. Like, this is just how it is. Like, this is just where we're at right now in this space. And that's hard. So yeah, maybe having compassion for when people are in that moment.
I was thinking of just being a little bit more prepared, called to just kind of be, just in general, be more prepared for things so that you just you don't have the abrupt feeling of you're under attack if something does happen.
Yeah, I nobody likes that feeling of like that stomach drop. Like, but also I don't want to be the kind of person that's always on the guard for the bad thing to happen too. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to, like, that feeling of like we couldn't trust that teacher really stunk, and like I couldn't trust her, and like I don't want to always be expecting the worst. But I do, yeah, like a little bit of observation could have helped. I don't know. That's a hard one.
I don't know. I don't know if it's more like subterfuge though. Can you really like, how do you prepare for that? Because they're not being deceitful, but they're not being
Yeah.
completely honest. So they're not like seeing the full picture. So how can you prepare for that? But then maybe you can. I don't know.
Yeah, I was
I think
I
it's
was
going to be
mostly thinking,
mine. Oh, yeah.
oh no, I was just gonna say like be prepared for like the examples kind of like we gave, like the weather, being more observant of the weather. knowing that it's going to be really hot and stuff, and going out and be more prepared for that instead of like coming out and so like, oh no, the sun is just going to kill me.
Yeah. Knowing that there are some things that I can prepare for, some things that I'll never be able to prepare for. And just the only control I have is how I handle it. And to just like, oh, that's a terrible feeling. And now what am I going to do with it? To kind of maybe move through it with compassion. Okay. Today for our blessings and sparklets, the order is Anna, Evelyn, me, and Katie. So who are we blessing?
I would like to bless Izzy. I would like to bless Izzy for all the reasons that Katie articulated in a conversation that we had had. Yeah, just Izzy, stepping towards repairing things with Ed or having a conversation with Ed, hearing Ed actually apologize, which is a big deal for Ed. And then Izzy kind of, having the support of Lee John to maybe, try a new look, and then singing that beautiful song for his friend. And, I think fully understanding who Steed is now and being like, oh, you two should be together. And I want to like help support that. And then along with that, a kind of blessing to Con O'Neill as well, because he apparently was asked to sing it in French, and he was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And then they weren't sure if they could get the right, so then he learned it in English, but then kept learning it in French. He's like, I just want to like make sure I'm prepared. And apparently that was just a very scary thing, obviously, to have to learn, that very famous song and sing it in French in a language you don't speak. So that's a lot of like new big things in one episode. So blessings to Izzy and blessings to those of us who, just go out on a limb and try new things, and when beautiful things come out of it. So that's my blessing.
I'm gonna bless Wee John in kind of a similar aspect. I love, like, I really do. I love that Wee John and the actor kind of was able to showcase like his talent in this episode of being a like drag queen, like all the performance and being the Calypso. And I think he did a good job for whatever Calypso is supposed to be. So bless Wee John and his performance. And I love that the actor knows the flair of being dramatic and everything. And I like that also that it helps spark Izzy into being doing what he did. So bless Wee John. I also enjoyed that, like, I don't know, I noticed that over the episodes, the change in Wee John, like from like the first like few episodes in the first season, and how like over time it seems like he became more and more into what he likes, into like you see him like starting to see him knitting, he's wearing more makeup, he's feeling more comfortable with himself, and I loved it.
I feel I already kind of shouted out the compassionate things I saw in Ed. So I'm going to instead bless Frenchie for bringing Calypso's party. Like, he had the idea. And I love that it's clearly something that he didn't just make up, that it kind of exists because the other crew is like, they Calypso'd him, or like, oh, that's the bathtub. That's very traditional. Like, there's some tradition to this. But he's the one that, like, I know what this group needs. I think we should celebrate Calypso's birthday. And we're all Calypsian, so that's great. And so blessings to people who are able to, like, see what the group needs and give them that's compassion, right? Give them what they need.
I'm gonna do something that I have a hard time with in real life and bless Ned. When someone kind of isolates themselves and pushes everyone away, um, as an adult. If it's a child, it's fine, but as an adult, when they do that, I'm kind of like, great, you go do that. And it's difficult for me, even in a perspective shift, to have compassion for them sometimes, because I think they're not being responsible and not making choices. And I don't always think like, who are their people? Who, like, what experiences they have to help them with why they might be acting this way, and what the function of their behavior is. I don't get as compassionate about that maybe as I could. So bless Ned, even though I don't really want to, I should. So I'm gonna try just to fictionally bless a fictional character who needs some compassion and love.
Well, and you're always very good to remind me that it's the people that are the hardest to love that sometimes need it the most. And challenging in life. You're right. It is challenging.
Join us next time when we discuss Season 2, Episode 7, Man on Fire, through the theme of yearning.
All right, ladies. Until next time when we can talk it through as a crew. Adieu.
But we're not really at the revenge step. We're sort of in the like pre-revenge window.
I'm tender-headed, you know.
Captain likes a bit of whimsy now and then.
Works for spiders, works for men.